Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today we're going to be talking about a little idiosyncrasy of cooking in an Instant Pot, as well as covering my tips for cooking small batches of dried beans to replace canned beans in other recipes. Let's get into it. Vegan Prepper. Vegan Prepper. Here is my 6-quart Instant Pot. I also own an 8-quart Instant Pot, and I actually use both of them quite frequently at the same time on my counter cooking our meals for whatever I might be cooking. And that's largely because of the way that I choose to store a lot of my food. Much of my storage for our family is in the form of dried grains and beans. And so I do definitely know how to cook every single one of these things just on the stovetop or even over a fire. I've done it before many times. But the main thing I use to cook these items is my Instant Pot. I feel almost like an Instant Pot or a similar kind of pressure cooker is pretty much essential to living day in, day out if this is the way that you choose to store your food. But I'm not trying to sell you an appliance. I'm here to talk to you about one of the idiosyncrasies that I've discovered of using the Instant Pot over the course of several years of being vegan now and cooking a lot of our food in one. And that is that, weirdly enough, it seems like the smaller your batch of food is, the longer it actually takes to cook. My theory behind this is that the more you fill the inner pot, the longer it takes for the Instant Pot to come to pressure. And the longer it takes to come to full pressure, actually, the longer your food items are being cooked, because they get hot for quite a long time before full pressure is reached. However, if you're cooking only 1 to 2 cups worth of food in your Instant Pot, or say you're cooking just maybe like 2 or 3 potatoes or something, the faster the pot will come to pressure, the less time the food will actually spend in the heat inside the pot. So whenever I am cooking a small batch of something, I always extend my cook time by at least 2 to 3 minutes. This is also really handy to know for cooking things like dried beans and grains, because oftentimes the cook charts for these items will have a range of cook time. So for instance, a bean, like say a cannellini bean, the cook time is from 35 to 40 minutes. And so if you're cooking a really large batch of relatively fresh cannellini beans, you may only need to cook it for 36 minutes. However, if you're cooking a smaller batch, or if you're cooking, say, beans that are like a year or more old, you can go ahead and extend the cook time and push it all the way to that 40-minute mark, and then you should be totally fine. This comes up in my life when I am cooking beans, especially to replace canned beans in a recipe, say, that is mostly cooked on the stovetop. Or something like that. So why would you not necessarily just throw every recipe in there? Well, because everything has a different cook time. And so like with the example of the cannellini beans, those can take 40 minutes to cook, whereas potatoes typically take about 16 minutes to cook. And so if I'm making a potato and cannellini bean soup like I did last night for my family, I'm making the potato part on the stove and I'm cooking cannellini beans in the Instant Pot. In the meantime, I start them earlier than I do the stuff on the stove. But if that makes sense, that's kind of how it works for me. But what I end up doing is, I know now that for the most part, now it's not necessarily 100% exactly true across the board, but as kind of a ballpark figure, rule of thumb type thing, you can think that 1 cup of dry beans will cook up to about 3 cups of cooked beans, which replaces about 2 cans of beans. Now these are just refried beans, but because I don't have any other cans of beans to show you. But these are 16 ounces, but I think a lot of times these are like 14-ounce cans. I'm not 100% sure, but it's kind of like this kind of smaller size, not like the big soup cans, but like this kind of smaller typical size can. Usually about 1 cup of dried beans will replace 2 cans. And so obviously, for really easy math, you could then do 2 cups of dried beans to replace 4 cans of beans. I don't mean to be overly simplistic, but just in case you really need for me to explain it, I will go ahead and explain it. To bring it all home, if you would like to cook just 1 cup of beans to replace about 2 cans in another recipe, or just to have about that much or that amount of cooked beans on hand, what you would do is cook 1 cup of dried beans, add about 3 cups of water. I usually do just a little extra, but I don't know that it's necessary. And then close up your Instant Pot, set the time, only use the upper register of the cooking time that usually you're given a range. Like I said, 35 to 40 minutes, use 40 minutes. Or if your beans are really old, you might increase it even just a little more, like 41, 42 minutes. And so that ends up being super handy. The Instant Pot makes it really fast and very easy to do. One of the main reasons I began doing that was because I would, in the past, just cook a large batch of beans for my family, but a lot of times people would kind of get sick of that same kind of bean. They'd stop using it. We would get through most of the batches, but sometimes we would end up with ones that would go bad, like especially if the container got pushed kind of to the back of the fridge and it got forgotten. And I hated tossing food. I hate food waste. One of the main reasons I store the way I do and cook the way that I do is to try to prevent food waste. And so I just really hate that. So for me personally, I've begun doing it like this. I also know, for instance, you can make a large batch of beans and then freeze them in your freezer, which is, you know, pretty great. Like that's potentially a great option. But for me personally, I then have to remember to get my beans out of the freezer, and I have to do all like extra steps. And so honestly, again, the Instant Pot makes it so fast that I just prefer doing it and then just getting the fresh beans out of the Instant Pot every time. And that's what works for me. So you can figure out what works for you. I just thought I'd share that little tip, and hopefully that's helpful to anyone. I know sometimes they can be kind of pricey, but for me, actually, I was on Facebook Marketplace just this morning and I saw an Instant Pot for 20 bucks. So they are out there used. I believe you can start finding them. Probably a lot of people bought them with good intentions, but still don't cook from scratch as much as they thought they would. And so you might be able to snap up an Instant Pot used. But even still, I will go ahead and link one down in the description box below. And anyway, just go ahead and check it out. If you haven't ever thought of doing it, go ahead. They also make slow cookers. They're pretty great, but I pretty much never use it for anything but just like the straight pressure setting. I don't think I've ever pushed the other buttons. I just do pressure cook or manual. It depends on which Instant Pot you get, what button you press. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that little tip. And if you have any other thoughts or comments down below that you'd like to say, just go right ahead, and I look forward to hearing from you. And as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys later. Bye. Can I put it down yet? Oh my gosh. This arm, y'all. Oh.